Hi, I'm Bruce Buzbee, President of RootsMagic, and we are really excited about the release of our new RootsMagic 11. Now, our guiding principle in working with this new version 11 was not to focus so much on what kind of new things and bells and whistles can we throw onto the program, but how can we make the existing program work better and work easier so that our existing users can spend less time, wrestling and fighting and trying to figure out how to do things. What can we do to simplify the actual just working within the program? So let's go ahead and just kind of jump right into here. First thing you probably notice is the buttons up here for the views are no longer just cryptic icons. They actually tell you we've got a pedigree view, we got the family view, descendant view, people view, and so on. The second thing is that we used to have a bunch of cryptic icons over here on the right on each of these pages, and those have now been replaced with actual menus. So you actually have menus for your commands. You can add command, your edits, your tools, your lists, and this works with any of the views. So if you go to the place view, you can switch between the place and the mapping. You can see right there, and you've got your menus to actually work with. And each one of these pages has a menu unique to that page. So instead of one big menu which has everything for the whole program, the menu on each one of these pages is going to be the items that are specific, the commands that are specific to that particular page. Now, in terms of what they do, they all work the same as they have in the past. So the functions still work that same. It's just we've cleaned up the command interface part of this. Next, on the people view, one of the things we've done is one of the requests we've gotten a lot of is how do I see just the basic information, the vital information, birth, marriage, and death. And so we have that information right here on a new header. Our new header, instead of kind of showing you everything and throwing the full fire hose at you, you have the basics. So you have the person's color code, their name, you have their relationship to whoever you use set relationship with, you've got their primary photo, and you've got their birth, marriage, and death. You've got the full date and place, and then if it can calculate the age, it shows you the age for that as well. In addition to that, we have the icons, and these icons were actually for the web hints and problem alerts, family search, and LDS ordinances. Those have been in there all along. So those are still there. But what's new, though, is these icons along the left-hand side. You have an icon for your notes, and you notice when I hover over it, it shows this person has 3 notes. This person has 13 sources, 3 media items, 2 tasks, 2 health items, and they don't have any DNA. You also notice if they don't have something, that icon's going to be a lighter. It's going to be kind of gray, whereas if something exists, if they do have a note or source or media, it will be darker right here. Finally, underneath that, we've added 2 new buttons showing the count of spouses and the count of parents. What this lets you do is if I highlight somebody here that, for example, it has 2 spouses, when I click on that, I'm going to see the 2 spouses. The one that's current is checked, but this is a quick way to let me switch between different sets of parents or different spouses and setting one or the other as the current spouse or the current set of parents. In the past, you had to dig through multiple, click, 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 click to get to it. Now it's right there. It shows you the count. You can easily switch back and forth between that with no problem. Okay, now what I want to show you is, let's do this. Let's show you the life summary. In previous versions, this button right here on the lower panel was called a family. Now it's called the life summary. And when you open up the life summary for a person, it's going to show you all of their events. So this is what used to be stuck up here in this header. You used to have that, and it used to kind of clog that up. But now you have the events. This will list all of the events. It'll list the spouses and children. If there's more than one spouse, you'll see that, and you'll see them all there. And you'll see the parents and siblings. Now, what's great about this is you can do almost anything you need to right from this life summary panel. So every person that's in the life summary, whether it's a spouse or a child or a parent or a sibling, will have a little menu to the right. You can say go to that person. That will let you jump right to that person on the pedigree chart or whatever view you happen to be. You can edit that person. That'll open up the edit screen for that person. You can unlink that person from that family right there, or you can delete that person. So pretty much anything you can do with a person, you can do it from right there. You also have the ability to add another child to this family, or to add a spouse, another spouse, and you've got those available right there. You also, if there's more than one child, there's only one child in this family. Let's go find somebody with more than one child. If there's more than one child, you can also, in addition to adding another child, you can also rearrange the children. So you click on that and it opens up the rearrange children screen for you right there. So it's a quick way to be able to get to rearrange. In this case, this person you can see has two spouses. And so there's the second spouse, and I can add a child to that spouse. I can rearrange the children in that family. I can add a third spouse if I want, or I can rearrange the spouses even. Same type of things with the parents and siblings. You can add siblings to a family. You can rearrange children, add parents. Now, you notice that right now I'm scrolling up and down. If I don't want to bother with doing that, I can actually collapse each of these sections. So I can expand and collapse them and get to just the part I want. The collapsing stays, so as I move from person to person, or when I exit the program and come back in, whatever was collapsed stays collapsed. Okay, now I'm going to show you a feature, and this is my favorite feature in the program in version 11. When you go in to edit a person, you'll open up their edit screen, and in the past, if you wanted to see sources, you clicked on a person's fact, on a fact that had a source thing, and then over here you could see sources, and you could click on that and bring in the citation and see the citation, and then you could go in and edit the citation, and then you could go do that with another and another and another, so on and so forth. Now we've added some new buttons over here, you'll notice. Some of them are the ones we've had before. We've always had the info button, that's this main screen. But now we have a sources tab. And what this does is opens a sources page, and this lists all of the citations for this person. Okay, so this person you can see has 6 or 7 general sources, couple of resident sources, couple of death, couple of burial, and a marriage. And you can highlight any one of the sources in that list and directly edit the citation right here. And so you can just move through there and edit the citations. You can come up and add a new citation. You can filter the citations. So if I don't want to see all of them, maybe I only want to see the burial citations. I click on that, and now I'm looking at the burial citations. So at this point, if I were to click on add, it would add that right there, the citation to that. And go back to add full. Okay, so that's citations. We're going to have another video that goes into a lot of detail on these, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. We've also added a tasks tab. This lists all the tasks for the person, whether they're general or tied to events or whatever. Again, you just highlight the task right there, and you can directly edit that task right here on the right. Notes. We've added a notes tab. And notes are a little different. You don't add them. Basically, you have one for each event or name or whatever. And so what RootsMagic does in this case is it lists the general, and then all of their events and their families and their associations and their names. And any of those that have a note, it will put an asterisk in front of it. And then when you select the fact, you can see the note right over here, and you edit that note directly right here. You just whoop, you edit. So this gives you a quick way to be able to just go in and edit all those notes all in one shot. And again, like I say, that we'll have another video that goes into a lot of detail on all of that. Oh, one other thing that's new in the edit screen is one of the things that we've added, and this has been a big request, is on proof. We've always had a fact could be proven, disproven, or disputed. We've added proposed. You could think of that as like a theory or hypothetical. It's basically if you add a fact to a person in your database, but it's not something you're sure of, it's just a theory you have, or it's a proposed fact, you can select propose now as an actual proof type for facts, for names, for the parents and spouses, relationships. You can do that. Another thing is that when you do select a proof, you'll see a little icon show next to it. And in the past, if your proof was disproven or disputed, we just drew a red line through it. We don't do that any longer. If it's disproven, you get a circle with a slash. If it's disputed, it has, I think, an exclamation mark. If it's proven, it has a green check mark. And if it's proposed, it has that's a puzzle piece. Okay, that's what we use for proposed. Also, if you have a fact type that you've marked as private, when you mark that as private, it will display a lock to that. So it's easy to spot which of your facts for that person are private right there from the edit screen. Now, one thing I didn't show you, and I kind of did this on purpose, is over here in this header, I mentioned how you have these buttons for notes, sources, media, and so on. Well, these are actually not just displays, but they're also clickable. So if I highlight notes, when I click on that, it opens up the edit screen to that notes page that I just showed you. If I click on sources, it takes you to that sources page, so you can see and edit all the sources directly from there. Same goes with the media, takes you to the media page for that edit person, and same with tasks. And then, of course, health and the DNA do the same thing as well. Okay, now let's move on to searching. Okay, one of the things we've done in the search is, I'm going to just show you a basic search first to show you a few of these things. If I were to go in and enter, just do a simple basic search, it's going to give me the results of that search right here. Now, you'll notice it looks different than it did in the past. One of the things that's different is right over here in that criteria, you now see how many matches there are. We had a lot of requests to see a count for how many actual results there were, so you have that right there now. We've also added the ability to print or to customize. Okay, print, if I have search results and I click on print, it's going to open up our report and it's going to show you a print. Now, in the case of if you have columns that are too wide, they may not all show here. So you may need to adjust which columns, kind of minimize the number of columns or change it to landscape mode or whatever. But the biggest advantage of printing the search results is right here. If I click on save, I can now save those search results as an Excel file or as a comma separated file. So if you ever wanted to take those search results and bring them into a spreadsheet or something else, you now have the ability to do that. I mentioned that you might need to customize these columns, and that's the other new thing, is customize. When you click on customize, this brings up that same screen that you use on the people view to customize the people list. The difference is that now the search has its own settings. So when you customize the search screens, that's independent from the people list view. So I can have this view right here, my search results can have one set of columns, and my people view here can have a completely separate set of columns. They're independent from each other. Okay. The last thing I want to show you on this basic search results is the fact that we've now added that life summary panel to the search results. So when you have your search results, in the past you could always click edit and that was fine, but now when you have your search results, in addition to being able to see all the facts for that person right there, you also can see all of their family members. And you can do things like add children or rearrange the children for that highlighted person, add spouses, all those editing types of things. You don't have to basically jump from here to someplace else. You can do it all right here from this person's search results. And again, you have all the same little buttons over here, menu on the side to do those things as well. Okay, advanced search. Now advanced search has all those same result options with an additional button called group. Now when you do an advanced search, you can get as fancy as you want with this search, and we're going to show you some of the new stuff in that. But what that group does is when you have results, you can click group, type in the name for a group, and RootsMagic will convert those search results and that search into a rules-based group for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go into Find, and I am going to click on Add, and this is a bit different. What we've done is in the past, you had the ability to add rules. You could create rules for mark a person, mark a family, groups, and so on. And then we had one called criteria, which had limitations, and so we've removed the limitations that criteria option had, and we pulled all those criteria search out into separate things. So we now have a rule called individual attributes. So you can search for a person based on their sex, living flag, color code, age, and so on. Family attributes, event. You can search for people based on event stuff, name and association. Now I'm going to go ahead and do event. I'm going to show you the options here. And like I say, we're going to have a separate video on this. It'll go into a lot of detail. So this is just a kind of a quick overview on what you have available. You can search for any fact type, and then you can search for the different parts of that fact or that event. You can search by the date, the place details, description, age, whether the fact exists, the proof, the node or the source. You can also pick an individual, and so I can go in and I can say, let's go ahead and pick occupation. Okay, so in this case I'm saying, select people based on their occupation. And if I were to go in and say, I want to look based on the date. Now this is going to be a new item right here. Date is between. So I can say the date is between 1800 and 1810. Okay, this is new. You haven't ever been able to do this before. You always had to do, occupation date is before this and is after this. And then you can also say the place, the occupation place contains New York. Okay, now this is where this is different from that criteria search. The only people who are going to match are going to be the people that all of this is true in a single fact. So in other words, they have to have an occupation fact that is between those two dates and the place is in New York. In the past, you always had to say the occupation date is after 1800, the occupation date is before 1810, and the occupation place contains New York. You could end up with a person being selected that had no occupation that matched all of that. If in that situation, you might have one person matched part of that, or one occupation matched part of it, and one occupation matched another, and the person would be selected because between the two occupations, they matched that. But the single occupation didn't match that. And I know that sounds kind of cryptic. Those of you who do a lot of searches know exactly what I'm talking about and are probably going, yay. Those who don't, don't worry about it. Another thing we've added new here is whether or not you want these matches to include shared facts. So you can say, no, don't include shared facts, do include shared facts, and do include shared facts only. Again, this will be explained in more detail in the video that talks about these new searches in specific. But that's a very powerful feature. This lets you find everybody who has an occupation or everybody who is sharing somebody else's occupation fact, or both. In other words, everybody who has an occupation fact or shares an occupation fact. Okay, so the next thing I'll show you here, though, is I'm going to go in and say ancestors, and I'm just going to pick somebody at random. Okay, and I'm going to rearrange this because I want the ancestors to be first, so I highlight them and move them up. So what this is doing is it's marking the ancestors of this person, and they have to have this event match. Okay, this is new. In the past, when RootsMagic did these search rules, it just did the first one, then it did the second one, then it did the third one. It didn't take into account which people were already selected. It just, if you said mark ancestors, and then you said and mark by event, you would get the people who matched, who were ancestors, and the people who matched the ancestors, along with anybody who's that event matched, even if they weren't an ancestor. Okay, so now you have the ability, though, to say they have to both be true, this and this. So you can use and, or, so mark the ancestors or by that event. This is kind of what it did in the past, or but not. Mark the ancestors, but then unmark the people who have this event match. Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and we did also move search and replace. We didn't move it. We added search and replace to the search. It just made sense to put it here, so you can come in here and do search and replace from here. It's still available in all those places. Like on the on the person view and the places view. It's still available in all of those views as well. Okay, next one I'm going to show you is a feature called the AI Prompt Builder. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this again because we have a separate video that goes into detail on that. But what the AI Prompt Builder does is it helps you build a prompt. So for those of you who have done stuff with AI, worked with AI, you're familiar with, you go to your search, your AI engine, ChatGPT or whatever, and it's got a place that says, what do you want to do? And you type in what you want to do. Well, what you type in, that's a prompt. And so what RootsMagic now lets you do, and you can get this from the tools menu or the list menu here, AI Prompt Builder, or you can right click on a person and choose AI Prompt Builder. And what this lets you do is build prompts. You can create a prompt, and you can also tell that prompt what information you want to include for the person that was highlighted when you selected it. So for example, these are two that I've added, a narrative biography. And so this basically right here is, this part right here is the prompt, and then this is the data that I told it to include for Vinaya, the person that was highlighted. Okay, word search puzzle. It's like, it basically is like, you're a family historian, create a word search game for the individual specified, intended for family reunion attendees. Okay, and then here's the information about them to include. Now, when you add a prompt, one way to do that is you enter a prompt name. That's what shows up in the list. Your prompt, and again, if you're a whiz-bang AI person and you know how to create like the greatest prompt ever, go ahead and do that. You just type that prompt in right here, and then over here on the right, you tell it what data do you want to include for the person that you're going to ask it for information on, that this prompt is for. You know, do you want to include names, events? Do you want to include basic information about family members? So you can do all of that right there. You can also, if you're not the world's greatest prompt builder, like I am not, you also have the ability to do this build a prompt. And what build a prompt does is it lets you select the role that the AI should take. In other words, hey AI, pretend like you're a storyteller. And what I want you to do is I want you to draft a narrative biography, and I want this to be geared towards elementary age children. And over here you can say how many words, maximum number of words. You can tell it, hey, you know, AI, don't make stuff up, because AI is notorious for making stuff up. You know, if you don't tell it specifically to not include fake information, it will make up stories about your ancestors, you know, stuff that has no basis in fact. So, you know, if you want that, if you want to do like a novel or something, you're doing some kind of fictional novel, go ahead and tell it, make stuff up. You can choose whether you want it to include historical context, and then what format do you want, you know, and you can pick what format, or you can just say no preference. And then you tell it to build the prompt. It builds that prompt right there. You choose over here, you know, what information you want, and narrative for kids. And so you choose whatever information you want over there, save it, and you now have this. And you can reuse this anytime. So for example, right now when I highlight this, you're seeing it's providing the data for that prompt is for Vinaya Harris. But if I were to go over to Henry Harris and do the prompt builder, then that information, it's using the information for Henry Harris. And so you basically have the ability to create a database of prompts that you can use with your AI that is completely reusable for any person in your database. So you'll select which one you want, say copy that prompt to the clipboard, and then you can go into your Chat GPT or whatever AI you're using and do a paste, and it'll paste that prompt right into your AI. Press enter and get the results from your AI. And you can, if you do that, it doesn't come out exactly the way you expect it to, just come back in here and edit the prompt and add your own instructions telling it, hey, don't do this. You did this when I did this last time. Don't do that anymore. So you can go in and create your own little custom prompts. Again, this is not using AI to tell you how to use the program. It's using the program to be able to help you use AI better and more efficiently. Okay, last thing I want to show you, there's actually a zillion more features, new features, little features in here, but we'll leave a lot of those, as something for you guys to just find. But the last feature I want to show you that we had a lot of requests for, and these have been requests forever, all the way back to even our previous program. And this is when you do the relationship calculator. Okay, and you do that relationship calculator. A lot of times you'll end up with more than one relationship. One of the top requests we've gotten is, how do I see that relationship? Because our relationship chart, when you go to the relationship chart, it always picks the closest relationship. So in other words, if it's the great-grandfather, it gives you the closest relationship. Okay, we now have this print chart button though. So first cousin 3 times removed, there's that relationship. There's that first cousin 3 times removed. If I want to see that one right there. print the chart, there it is. And so it doesn't matter, if your relationship calculator finds 50 different relationships, you can see the chart. You can see the relationship chart on any one of those relationships directly from this relationship calculator. Just print the chart and you'll get that. One last thing I should mention. This is not a feature I can actually show you, but one of the new features in RootsMagic 11 is we now have a Mac Silicon version of RootsMagic. And so for those who are Windows users, you don't care. Mac users, those of you who are using Macs, you're familiar with that Macs, the older Macs are all Intel based. If you have a Mac that has like an M1, M2, M4 chip, those will run our plain old, regular, old school Mac version, the Intel version, but it requires your Mac to have Rosetta installed, which does some conversion stuff. Well, we now have the Intel version. We still have the generic Mac version, which will continue to run on like the older Macs. But on these newer Macs, the M1, M2, M4, we now have this Silicon version, so you will be able to run RootsMagic on your newer Macs without having to have Rosetta. It's much faster actually on the computer when it doesn't have to go through Rosetta. So anyways, like I say, that's a brief overview of the new features, or a lot of the new features in RootsMagic 11. Like I say, there are others we'll leave to you guys to find. I hope you enjoy this. Like I say, we're really excited about this release, and thanks for sitting in and listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.